Okay. What else? I feel like there's an area I've... Well, that looks like there should be a room there, actually. Why haven't I been there yet? Wait a minute. Yeah, why haven't I been here at all? It wasn't even marked on the map. Okay. Although I have been here, otherwise this wouldn't be open, would it? Oh, maybe it would. I haven't seen that before.
Lonnie had her going away show with her band tonight. She's so incredible on stage.
It's a really shitty picture of that house. It's a really beautiful house.
Forget everything. That we only had 48 hours left. That I don't know what comes next. That I can't live without her. Then she dedicated the last song to me. And I couldn't take it. I was out on the curb in the alley, sobbing till my ribs hurt. I would follow her anywhere, Katie. But I can't. Where she's going.
Wait.
After a long time, she found me.
Give it a minute.
She said she was sorry. She said, I wish things could be different. I just wanted to make you happy. I said, I don't think you can anymore.
It's pretty rough. Army is the thing I grew up with. It's part of me. It's my dad's army friends are like family. I knew it was where I would end up. Okay. I mean, what was interesting there is that that's the first time it's been shown that it's directly being addressed to us. She said our name, which is a little bit odd because it's like we're getting these flashbacks sort of ethereally, or not flashbacks, but you know, these bits of narrative. They're just kind of popping up as we look at certain things. So having it as though it's a letter addressed to us that we're reading at the same time, or something to that effect, it's pretty weird. Also, this is a really fucked up filing cabinet, guys. This is dangerous. By that I mean, you never want a filing cabinet where you can open multiple drawers at the same time, because that's how people die. Because if you open all the drawers at the same time, guess what? 90% of the weight distribution is out here, and suddenly the whole thing's tipping on someone. And someone's dead. Crushed under just some shitty paper that nobody would ever look at again, probably. Alright, so Dad got his book republished successfully. He's happy about that. Oh, sorry about that. Thanks, allergies. Midnight, June 5th. Final preparations are complete. Okay, so we've got one more secret area.
We agreed our last night together would be our happiest ever. And we'd forget tomorrow was going to come at all. It worked for a while. We had a good time seeing Oscar off. Then ran up to the attic to look through our photos. To find one for Lonnie to take with her. And looking at them, I realized they were all in the past. And there wouldn't be any more. I didn't know what I was going to do. And I cried. She held me. She said she knew it was hard, but life would move on. I said I didn't want my life to keep moving without her. That's when she cried too. I was so exhausted. I must have fallen asleep like that. in her arms. In the morning, I woke up, and I was finally alone.
Oh, come on. Don't... Why... Where is the occult shit even applicable? God damn it. I don't want to do this. I feel like they write a pretty okay narrative.
The sunset light in this house is the saddest thing I've ever seen.
I don't want to even...
Want to sleep.
They write a pretty good narrative and then
in
they
the
shit it
attic,
up with
it
all this like
almost feels
occult
Lonnie
and
could
scary
still be
shit.
here.
That's not even
She's
like my
just
personal
downstairs.
preference there. It's just not.
I'm just waiting to hear her pull down the hatch and come running up. Maybe I'll go up to the attic and wait.
Wait a minute. This is Massan's pharmacy, but isn't that also... I feel like that that logo is also one of the... Is it one of the zodiac signs or something like that? I feel like. I swear to God, if you make me do... If you make me do occult stuff, I'm gonna have a bad time. Okay, we got a key though. It's the key to the attic. Let's go up to the attic. Let's have a bad time, since clearly we can't have a good time. I mean, this is at least, like, it's not boring. It's not super well done. But it's not straight up boring. I swear to God, if I go up here and Sam has committed suicide or something, I'm gonna have a really bad time. I'm just gonna do a hard cut if this is something I can't handle. I don't think it will be, but fuck.
Oh my God. Katie, I fell asleep in the attic, in Lonnie and my old spot, and I missed the first 2 calls. I just barely caught the third one before the
Oh,
machine
that's who
got
was
it.
calling.
And it was Lonnie, on a payphone. She'd been on the bus to Basic, and she said she couldn't think of anything but me and us, and that she couldn't go through with it, with the army and being a part and all of it. And so she got off the bus in Salem. She said, Sam, I want
What
you
a
to pack
place
up
to get off
everything
the
you can
bus.
and get in your car
Fuck
and come
that.
find me. And let's just drive until we find somewhere for us. And she asked me if I could do that. And I said yes. Yes.
So it does have a happy ending? It's had to get all sinister for no reason? Or is it gonna get fucked up? Okay, this looks like the end of the game. I can do this.
Katie, I'm so sorry that I can't be there to see you in person, that I can't tell you all this myself. But I hope as you read this journal and you think back, that you'll understand why I had to do what I did. And that you won't be sad, and you won't hate me, and you'll just know that I am where I need to be. I love you so much, Katie. I'll see you again someday. Love, Sam.
clearly the story of the family, both Samantha and Lonnie, of the parents who have, lives that haven't necessarily gone great. Um, there's a lot of you know, I don't want to say like there's darkness looming over the family. There's shit that's happened, but very few people go through life and don't have bad stuff that lingers with them for a long time. There's very few people who don't, go through life with a decent number of demons that they have to live with. And so creating a world that implies a more sinister purpose, including all of the stuff with Oscar and the occult and shit like that. And it's definitely possible I just missed some of the stuff regarding Oscar and all that, and maybe it was described in more detail later. But we don't know what happened between Oscar and the rest of the family, that they didn't want to, be associated with him. The house has some sort of, dark past, probably just tied to, hey, parents telling them don't go near that house because it has that guy who did a weird thing once or something like that. But again, the whole, it could have very well, if they had done a little less of the, excessively dark corridors and stuff to add suspense, and removed the storming outside and all that, I feel like tonally I would have absorbed the narrative they were trying to tell a little bit better. And I'm pretty sure at this point I'm kind of going around in circles with what I'm saying and what I'm intending to say. Yeah, I think they shot themselves in the foot with that a bit. And that's despite all the things that they managed to not do wrong. A lot of the sort of blunders that a lot of the other quote unquote walking sims make, they managed to not do. But I mean, I talked about it in my walking sim video, which I will link in the description if you haven't already watched it. And I'll also link my friend Spencer's video that I mentioned before. I talk a little bit about the whole idea of, if a walking sim doesn't have a lot of the same things that other games have that allow you to potentially distract from the shortcomings of your game. There's no combat, so you can't hide, whatever, the fewer things there are in your game, the more simplistic the gameplay, the more focus there is on a problem when there are problems. And this would definitely have, fall into that category for me of, if you make a game like this and, a first person non-combat narrative experience, you got to nail it on all cylinders. You can't, even more so than most other genres, I think. And if you get your, I guess my interpretation is obviously subjective. They're not objectively wrong to put it like that. But I constantly had this sense of foreboding that was misplaced. Even from the character's perspective of, she didn't know about she didn't know about what was going on with her sister. She didn't know about these or she may or may not have known about the extra passages in the house, although presumably not. Even so, yeah, I did mention before, if I found a passage going into my room that I had never known was there and I had lived there for a while, I probably would have had a bad time. But that doesn't excuse the long-term, consistent sense of foreboding. Moments of it, absolutely, but not, not walking into the front door and worrying whether you're going to be jumped upon. It does a disservice to the narrative. And like I said, they cut it in the right places. They didn't drag it out too long, which is another, probably the number one pitfall of walking sims. Arguably, is just not knowing when they've overstayed their welcome. This did a good job of knowing the story that it had to tell, knowing how to express that fairly succinctly and get out. But it still, still had some shortcomings in a few of the other areas, particularly, having to read letter after letter after letter. And admittedly, the alternative there, which would be preferable to me, may not have been the most viable. Clearly, the alternative is to put less exposition driven items around, where rather than I hate to pull out the whole literary advice and all that, but the whole idea of show and don't tell. Show your world, create your world in a way that articulates what you want to say without you having to spell it out, rather than dumping exposition. If you walk into the house and now that I think about it, in retrospect, that when you first walk into that house, it's a generic house. It's big. It's sort of old world. It's got, it's got some character to it, but I don't think at any point with the exception of a few particular set pieces, the house itself, the main setting, the whole setting, really, does not itself do a very good job of articulating tone, of articulating what we as the viewer, as the player, are meant to experience. And there are exceptions to that, obviously. Sam's room almost borders on an orgy of evidence. At least as far as the type of person that she was. It does do a good job of not just, hammering it into our faces. She was gay, she was gay, she was gay. It uses a gentle touch and lets you in on that information in a slow and metered fashion that does the narrative it does a good job with the narrative. But the rest of her room, the whole here's Portland, northwest United States, kind of grunge chick, punky and a little rebellious and trying to find her way in the world, that sort of thing. And I don't know, maybe if that hadn't been so concentrated in a single place, if there had been more ancillary evidence of those sorts of things in other places. I mean, I don't know how I would have done it exactly. Obviously, just spreading her shit all over the house is not a good idea. We proved that just by seeing the way they deliver the dad's narrative of just boxes of books and shit. It's not outright bad, but it's not particularly good either. it might have just been me not being observant, but it took me, until the sixth box of books or something like that, and 4 letters in, to realize that the boxes of books were even written by the dad. And as far as the parallel narratives go, I don't know whether that adds or subtracts or is a net zero as far as, being compelling. Obviously, it adds to the scope of the story, rather than focusing on a single individual, on our sister. You're getting a greater idea of a couple of different parallel storylines of the dad struggling to publish, the mom having some success, but maybe not being totally happy all the time, and especially the dark history of the uncle whose house this was, whatever that may be. Piecing that all together does allow you to fill out your narrative a bit, for better or for worse. Obviously, like I said, they could have focused solely on Samantha, but obviously, if they wanted to do that, then the whole point of the large house and the secret passages and all of that is kind of pointless. You could substitute the setting for any other house, if you were only telling Samantha's story, and only have to make tiny little changes as far as the locations of things, that sort of thing. My full feeling on the game, it's pretty alright. It was a better time than I thought I was having as I was going through it, which is sort of it's like a backhanded compliment to the game. They did what they set out to do pretty well, but they could have done it a lot better. And we saw the credits. It's a pretty small team, so credit where credit's due. But it has its shortcomings, to be sure. I'll just sort of kind of end on the same thing I said in my video before, of if you're gonna make a game like this, if you're gonna make a narrative driven story that has very little other to do other than to tell a story, figure out whether your story bears being represented in a 3D world, or whether it's better off being a different piece of media. In this case, I think this is a story that couldn't have been articulated in the same way without the addition of visuals. It probably could have been turned into, it probably would have been pretty good. I was initially going to say as like a short film or something like that, but I think even better than that is if this had been like a 1-act play or something like that. It probably would have been really compelling. And admittedly, to go back to my video before, it's a matter of wanting to be in new media instead of arguably, I don't like to call it archaic, but in media that the millennial generation doesn't tend to partake in. And not a whole lot of people of my age go to the theater anymore. It's not really our thing. But I maintain that I think this would have been really good as a 1-act, as a sort of, girl silently walking through the stage, through various parts of a house, and hearing an omnipresent narrator telling the story. I think it would have worked really well like that. So, yeah. Technical shortcomings and design shortcomings aside, I had a pretty good time. Anyway, I've been the Social Solipsist. Thank you guys for sticking around to play this all with me. It is it's about an hour and 45 minutes since I started, I think. Which it's a pretty solid amount of time. I did it a little faster than the average player and probably missed a few things, but yeah, thanks for sticking around. Yeah, leave some comments. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you think about the genre as a whole and this experience, and yeah. Anyway, I'll see you guys next time.